Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm Katherine Shaughnessy and I live in Boise, Idaho. But I have a studio here in Garden City, lovely Garden City along the Boise River. And I'm happy to be here and happy to be speaking with you in this form of a video. I'm calling this a video love letter because that's what we do these days. So yeah, today I just wanted to share a little of the thoughts and process behind the making of my sculpture, Tempest Tos't, which I made in 2019 and was exhibited as part of the Winter Solstice exhibition at the Port Angeles Fine Arts Center on the rooftop. It's a sculpture that's made out of copper and it glows from within, powered by solar lights, and it's a replica in my making of the actual flame from the Statue of Liberty in New York City. So what I thought I would do is just take a few minutes to give you a little bit of background information on the Statue of Liberty and what it's made out of, and then how I was inspired to do this piece. So the original Statue of Liberty was titled Liberty Enlightening the World. It was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi. It was dedicated on October 28, 1886. The statue is meant to commemorate the recent end of slavery in the United States. Note that the lady is standing on broken chains. I don't know if you can see that in the sculpture, but she is standing on broken chains. But over the years, perhaps because of its location in the New York Harbor and Liberty Island near Ellis Island, once the main entry for immigrants coming to the United States, it came to symbolize immigration and the nation's welcoming spirit. Emma Lazarus of New York first ignited this idea in 1883, when in an effort to raise money to build the statue's pedestal, she wrote the now famous poem, The New Colossus, which ends with these much-quoted lines. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, Tempest Tos't, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. But in the 1880s, even though the Civil War had ended a generation ago with an Emancipation Proclamation, not all Americans had full rights of citizenship. Women didn't have the right to vote, and segregation was law. The Cleveland Gazette, a black-owned newspaper in Cleveland, Ohio, lambasted the Statue of Liberty for its false piety. Liberty enlightening the world, indeed, the expression makes us sick. This government is a howling farce. It cannot, or rather does not, protect its citizens within its own borders. Shove the Bartholdi statue, torch and all, into the ocean until the liberty of this country is such as to make it possible for an inoffensive and industrious colored man to earn a respectable living for himself and family, without being Ku Kluxed, perhaps murdered, his daughter and wife outraged, and his property destroyed. The idea of liberty of this country enlightening the world, or even Patagonia, is ridiculous in the extreme. Again, that was from an article called Postponing Bartholdi's Statue Until There is Liberty for Colored as Well. The Cleveland Gazette, Cleveland, Ohio, November 27, 1886. It's true that 133, now 35 years ago, the Statue of Liberty was premature in its commemoration of freedom for all Americans. And now, decades after full suffrage, Lady Liberty, as the welcoming symbol of America, can ring a bit hollow. Walls continue to be erected on the southern U.S. border. More and more refugees are being turned away, and the chains of racism are being forged anew. Yet the spirit of Lady Liberty is enduring. The tall woman, torch in hand, remains a surprisingly powerful symbol. The statue is instantly recognizable, and she still provides a guiding light. She is still challenging America to be both compassionate and enlightened. So that's a little history on the Statue of Liberty. And just so you know the materials and the construction. Bartoli's statue was made of copper attached to an interior skeleton of steel designed by Gustav Eiffel. The original torch had construction and functional problems from the beginning. To top it off, in 1916, Germans detonated carloads of dynamite on a nearby peninsula, killing 7 people and damaging the sculpture, especially the torch bearing right arm. The torch went through a major reconstruction by sculptor Gutzen Borglum of Mount Rushmore fame. He removed much of the original copper, creating a latticework of copper with 600 stained glass windows. And with the addition of electrical power, the torch glowed from within like a lantern. By 1984, the torch, which was again in a serious need of repair, was removed and replaced with a 24-karat gold leaf replica that was lit with spotlights shining on it from outside. To this day, the original copper torch is not on the statue, but located in a museum on the island. So I'll talk a little bit about my inspiration for how Tempest Tos't came about. About 2 years ago, my mother and sisters and I took a trip to New York. I know the city very well, but had never thought much of how it fits into my own personal family history. My mother's family came from Ireland in the early 1900s via Ellis Island and initially settled in Manhattan, where my great-grandfather opened a bakery. They would have seen the young Statue of Liberty as their ship approached America. They eventually settled in Cleveland, Ohio. Together, my family and I walked the halls of Ellis Island and then climbed up and into the statue. It was powerful to stand in those giant halls, imagining our ancestors arriving 100 years ago. For me, it was a jumble of contradictory emotions. The Statue of Liberty is a beacon of enlightenment, the criticisms from the Cleveland Gazette, and Lazarus' promise to those yearning to be free, the present-day need for such a symbol. And so my desire to create the flame began. I am still torn by what I see our government and my fellow citizens doing and saying to the refugees and to immigrants, to the individuals, to the families, to the children who want and or need to come to the United States today. I used to live along the US-Mexico border, and this past spring, I worked on an art project weaving miniature bridges in memory of the 3 children who died while in US custody there. Sadly, since I wrote this originally, more have died, and we all know of the cages and other horrors that have been administered under the current president's administration. So all of this inspired me to kind of try and bring the flame back to life and put it out there as a beacon of hope. Like it's not a bad idea. We should be welcoming and all of that. So I was inspired by the materials and by the history of it, and that we're in a time right now that is just like nothing I've ever known, and certainly it's a sad time. And I think it's something we really need to reflect on, what's happening and where we can go from here. So my version of the flame, Tempest Tos't as I call it, is made from hammered copper pipe that I collected from the Boise scrapyard. It's the pipe that you would use in plumbing, different diameters of it, lengths. And I constructed it like a basket by flattening and bending the pipes and weaving them together one by one and bolting them at the intersections. So it's all like, they look like flat bars or cuts of copper, but they're actually pipes that have been smashed flat. And I did it with lots of hammers and vices on an old stump, mostly. And instead of stained glass, which is what they had used in the original one, I used copper screening and then lit it by solar-powered lights It stands about 5 feet tall and 4 feet wide. And that title obviously comes from the 13th line of Lazarus' poem. Tempest Tos't, the definition, it's an adjective meaning, an old adjective that no one really uses anymore, but meaning pounded or hit repeatedly by storms or adversities, buffeted, storm-tossed, troubled, characterized by or indicative of distress or affliction or danger or need. Tempest Tos't was a kind of a new direction for me work-wise. I've always built things out of lots of projects out of paper and fabric and stitching and weaving, but this one was the first that I'd done that was so big and had this movement of light within it and around it. And it's a very purposeful piece in my mind, just trying to light our way a little bit and go in the right direction, because I feel like we are falling as a human, as falling behind, and we need to be better to our fellow human beings. So I really liked too how when I was able to put it in with that Wintertide exhibition at the Port Angeles Fine Arts Center last year, that it was able to be within view, sightline of the ocean. It was really important to me that we lift it high and have it sort of be this beacon on the West Coast. So, I think this, even though we may not live on a border per se, we may all not live on a border, or the southern border, or we're all responsible for what's happening at our borders, and who we're letting in and not letting in, and whatnot. So again, I just wanted to say that hoping this torch sheds a little light across our country, and then I hope that it can stay there and at the Port Angeles Fine Arts Center. It would be wonderful to have it permanently on the rooftop and looking out over Port Angeles and into the out to this ocean. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and again, I'm nervous to do this, and I hope that it wasn't too wordy, and I wish we could take questions, but that's not possible right now. So thank you for your time, and thank you, Sarah Jane and the staff at the Fine Arts Center for allowing me to speak with you. Bye-bye. Be well.